Hello, and welcome back to Who Died with Pete and Alex. It's your weekly guide to some of the famous, infamous, and noteworthy figures who took a dirt nap this week. That's one of my longtime favorites. A little bit insensitive, but hey, that's why we're here.
The nap I like, though. The nap implies that you'll wake up at some point.
It's a temporary thing, yeah. But yes, I'm Pete the Retailer. It's Alex Robinson. We do this show where we talk about who's passed on in the last couple of days. Hopefully you've heard it, you get the idea. And Alex, I believe you have our first honoree this week.
Yes, it's a big one. It is the legendary anime Bullock, better known as Tina Turner, the pop icon, born November 26, 1939, went to the great beyond May 24th, 2023. A lot of people listening to this probably already know who Tina Turner is, but let's take a look back and give over some highlights and maybe some things you might not be aware of with Ms. Turner. She rocketed to first pop culture awareness when she teamed up with her husband, Ike Turner. They recorded together 1960 to 1976. And they had hits with Proud Mary and River Deep Mountain High and other ones. But it was her solo album in 1984, Private Dancer, recorded in just 2 weeks, that put her majorly on the map as a solo recording artist. It won Record of the Year. Overall, she'd go on to win 12 Grammys with her solo career. And this is where all the hits that you know Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do With It, You Better Be Good to Me, Private Dancer, Thunderdome, Simply the Best, and on and on and on. And she was also the first, I thought this was kind of interesting. She was, back in the day, Rolling Stone used to be a big thing for baby boomer culture. She was the first woman and the first black artist on the cover of Rolling Stone. So she's a double pioneer in that sense. She grew up very poor in Nutbush, Tennessee. And she was a cheerleader in high school. Imagine that you were in the cheerleading squad with Tina Turner. You feel like you really have to. It's a lot of competition in that sense. She after graduating high school, she kind of tried out different jobs. She was a nurse's aide, and then eventually she wound up hanging out in the nightclub scene and became a singer. Hooked up with Ike. I think most of us know how that turned out. Not so good. You can watch the biopic What's Love Got to Do With It, starring Angela Bassett, if you want more details on their tumultuous relationship. Mad Max, of course, probably guaranteed her a certain degree of immortality in a different arena of pop culture.
The Thunderdome, that's the arena.
Yes, exactly. 2 men enter, but only 1 man leaves. That's the rules. I was really surprised that when I heard she had passed away, and I went to go look up information about her, and it identified her as a Swiss singer. And I was like, is this some weird thing where she was born on like an army base or something like that? And then moved to America. But no, quite the opposite. She renounced her American citizenship in 2013 and became a full-time Swiss citizen. So technically, yes, she died a Swiss recording artist. So,
she had, for a while, I think she was living in Europe, just purely because it was a better place for, I think purely, I don't know, maybe there was some financial motive behind it, but I think it's largely because it's a better place. You get treated better if you look like her in Europe than you do here. I mean, that's generalizing it. There's a lot of places where that's not the case, but the legacy of African Americans is unfortunate and complicated, and so she felt more kind of at home living in Europe, that's interesting that she put her money where her mouth is and fully renounced her citizenship after a bit too, which is. I
mean, it's especially sad when you consider that she's she's Tina Turner. She's world famous, recognizable, and yet still was like, you know what? I got to go somewhere where, like, even then she was facing, prejudice and racism, presumably. So,
Yeah.
Age 73, became the oldest woman on the cover of Vogue magazine. So she continued to break barriers, even in her dotage. You like Tina Turner? Well, obviously you're not going to say, no, I don't like Tina Turner, but...
No, yeah, I certainly respect Tina Turner, and I like the things. I had a weird Pavlovian reaction to specifically that kind of, her big album, in that I think there was one time where I was on I was traveling with some friends. I think we had driven into the city. We were coming back, and I got car sick, and that was kind of blasting. And so I have this association that for years I would always say Tina Turner makes me car sick. But
like Clockwork Orange, she was an inadvertent.
Yeah, exactly. But once I became not, once I grew up a little bit, and I started to really appreciate not only the actual work, but also kind of its importance, what it means at the time too. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she was definitely more of an adult contemporary artist when we were younger. So it wasn't really aimed at our generation. This was back when pop music was, had all different age groups and demographics. Mm-hmm. But now when I hear it, it, of course, makes me intensely nostalgic for the 80s. Sure. So, and I barely get car sick at all when I listen to her. So,
yeah, maybe I should try it. Maybe it might have the opposite effect now.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten so over it. Now I'm like 100%. Like, I'm starting to get car sick. Better put on Tina Turner.
You are the only time you're not car sick is when you listen to Tina Turner.
Right.
So. Well, goodbye, Tina. Pete, who do we have up next?
Speaking of prejudice and racism and scandal, we wanted to mark the passing of one Kenneth Wilbur Engelmeyer. Known to many as Kenneth Anger. He rebranded himself at some point, shortened it up.
Smart.
Passed away May 11th at the age of 96.
Wow.
Was born in 1927. American underground experimental filmmaker, actor, and author. It was kind of, I had a minute of kind of, I think for the first time, put together that, oh, wait a minute, the Kenneth Anger that makes the experimental films is the same one that wrote Hollywood Babylon. I had never put that together.
Yeah,
but it's one of America's first openly gay filmmakers, broke some barriers in terms of like not only being openly gay, having his content, made a lot of kind of short experimental film. We might want to call them surrealists. I don't know, but a lot of experimental short films that were deeply, they involved two of his passions, which were passions, but two aspects of his life, in that they were often kind of homoerotic, and they also involved elements of the occult. He was a friend of in the what is it, the Novo Order, the California kind of Satanist / occultist scene, and he claimed to not be a Satanist. He was friends with a lot of people in that scene, and a lot of people who were interested in that scene. Became friends with the Rolling Stones and Jimmy Page as they kind of, in the 60s, late 60s, they got kind of interested in like, hey, what's this occult thing all about? Jimmy Page, probably more so.
He really went. And
yeah, I mean, one of his first well-known, he's a guy that we encounter in, you see his stuff in film school if you study film, kind of these early, you see like Stan Brakhage and Maya Deren and Kenneth Anger. And in 1947 was his first kind of film to get kind of maybe not mainstream recognition, but artistic recognition. So he was about 20, and it was controversial because of he was put on trial for obscenity charges over the kind of homoerotic nature of the film, because a lot of places, a lot of states still had laws against, actual homosexual conduct. Mm-hmm. And luckily he was acquitted, made some more movies, moved to Europe, became part of the avant-garde scene there, and then kind of moved back to the U.S. in the 50s at some point, and decided to write a book about he grew up in California and in the L.A. area, decided to write a book about all the rumors that he had heard about Hollywood
The seedy
stars
underbelly.
and it's become a kind of infamous work over the years. It's many of the claims of the stories of the rumor bits have been either disproven or
Exaggerated.
Turns out a lot of it's made up, and not necessarily saying that he made it up, but it's like, oh, I heard this. It's like playground rumors.
Yeah.
A lot of them are still urban legends, even though they've been disproven. Recommend everybody go check out You Must Remember This. Karina Longworth did a whole series of kind of like poking through some of the rumors that came from this book. It's cited as an important influence on a lot of modern directors like David Lynch, John Waters, Martin Scorsese, which is interesting. If you look at the kind of his use of like color and shot composition, it's really impressive how like, oh wow, that's very kind of stark and modern for something that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a small experimental independent film of the era.
Yeah.
But besides his besides the notability, the kind of doubt cast on Hollywood Babylon and the kind of the stuff that he's, the ire that he may have drawn for that, he's also kind of said and done some other things that have angered people over the years. I know a lot of people were, to separate the art from the artist kind of a thing, where a lot of people have, when we saw that he passed, a lot of people commented on like, oh, how important his work was and how groundbreaking, and he broke down a lot of barriers, but also a lot of people claimed that he was a liar and a racist. He had very kind of, the kinds of claims. He once said something about being slightly to the right of the KKK in terms of his views on race in America, and then would stand behind the like, oh, I'm just kidding, I'm being a provocateur, but I think actually had a lot of issues and problems, and I don't know, tough to pin down, but did some important work, should be kind of noted, recognized, was important to a lot of people, and so age of 96. Ken Engelmeyer would not talk much about why he changed it to Anger, other than it was like a rebranding that was more memorable, and I think that was a good idea.
Yeah. It's impressive that he made it to 96, because if you had wagered on people who'd make it to 96, Kenneth Anger probably would not have been one of the people that a lot of people would have wagered on.
Yeah,
so,
it just goes to show you. You never know. It's roulette.
It's true. Well, moving on to another artist. This week we have to mention the passing of Ralph Lee. Ralph Lee, puppeteer, creator of theatrical events. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly one category he'd be in. He started off in the 60s doing off Broadway, set pieces and puppetry and things like that, masks, props and puppets and so on. But it was in 1974 that he created the thing that would be his legacy, which is the New York City Halloween Parade. Started off in 1974 with 200 adults and children in Greenwich Village, and quickly caught on, particularly as a gay community event. And eventually became the world's largest Halloween parade and the only major nighttime parade in the United States. I'm curious about the major part, what the line is between a major parade and a minor parade.
Minor nighttime parades. like Disneyland? Like, what about that? Like
I guess so. Maybe that's not a major one.
I don't know.
Yes, now it's if you've never seen it, you should check it out. I'm sure there's clips on YouTube, but there's puppets, 50 marching bands, and it's a very grassroots kind of thing. Anyone can march in it. You don't have to, so basically you just go down to the parade, start walking, and you're officially part of the parade. And something like 250,000 people currently go see it in person, and plus it's worldwide, broadcast worldwide.
Is it? Have I seen it? Is it on TV or something?
I remember
on the internet, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, I remember maybe New York One. That's not a national thing, but maybe even like the Sci-Fi Channel or G4, one of those kind of like minor, smaller pop cultural channels. So also noteworthy because they frequently will address current political issues in there. After September 11th, they were like, "Oh, should we have this?" And so it would have been the first time they canceled it, and so they said, "No, we have to do it. It's the spirit of New York." And I think the rebirth was kind of the theme of it. Like there was a big Phoenix float and everything like that. So and they've done other stuff: Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, etc. Yeah. So, Pete, have you ever gone to the Halloween parade?
Sure.
Did you get dressed up?
No, I don't think I never went in it, but I watched it, and I don't think I was. Maybe I was dressed up, but I doubt it. I don't. Not as consistent. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not as into the Hollywood thing, the Halloween thing as, or the Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
The Halloween thing as some other people get. Some people start in January start marking their calendar, be like, okay, 10 months.
Start working on the costume.
Yeah, always a fun time. I remember watching there's the kind of clock tower of what is it, the library on the corner
Jefferson Library, I think.
And there's a giant spider that would climb down the tower. That was probably a puppet of his, perhaps. And I think there's some. My wife's family are theater people, and they were involved with did some work with La Mama and stuff like that over the years. So there's a box here of some kind of like avant-garde masks and stuff that I feel like might be related to a production of his. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some more research. But
that's cool.
It's funny when you put in your notes as far as who you were going to talk about, and I swear that I would have sworn rather that you were talking about Bill Lee, who also passed away this week, who was Spike Lee's father and a composer.
Oh, right.
A musician. But no, turns out.
Bad week for the Lees.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I want to thank Super Nick on Twitter for calling this a particular entry to our attention. So if we are on Twitter at Who Died Pete Alex, so you can let us know, call our attention to someone, particularly if it's someone like this who I might not have noticed otherwise. But Tina Turner, everyone knew Tina Turner died, but Bill Lee probably not as widely known. So thanks, Super Nick.
Yeah, somebody who we have been impacted by. We've both been to the. I didn't turn it around and ask you, but I think you've been to the Halloween parade several times, right?
I watched it I watched it from the stands when I was in college. I tried to go march in the parade, but the people I were going with would take forever to get ready, and so by the time we'd get there, the parade, there would still be people walking around in costumes and stuff, but the parade itself would be disbanded by then. So I've never actually had the honor of walking in the parade. So
I'm picturing you in like a hammerhead costume or something, like, come on, guys, come on. And they're all like putting the finishing touches on their flapper and hobo and all like the.
No, I think the one I particularly remember is that I was Groucho Marx, which is a very easy costume to do. You just put on eyebrows. And so I was probably very, very quickly, and my friends had much more elaborate costumes. But goodbye, funny man.
Oh. Didn't you? Did it go right by the Barnes & Noble that you once worked at?
I went by the Barnes & Noble on 6th Avenue. I worked at the other one, but okay. I worked on the one on 5th Avenue. The parade has changed routes over the years as it's gotten bigger and so on. So possibly at one point it did go by that one.
Well, my next honoree is not a Lee; it's a tree. It's the cotton tree. Wanted to tip of the hat to. I know we have phrased our intro, the kind of the motto of the show, into the noteworthy. What did we say? Individuals or something like that. We don't want to say people because we've had some other.
You've already had a duck.
Animals, and we had a duck. We had a panda. Uh-huh. Now we're going to talk about a tree. The cotton tree was about 70 meter. That's 230 feet or so tall tree. It was a cotton tree, the oldest of its kind in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and one of the most famous landmarks of Sierra Leone. Nobody knows exactly how old it was, but it was at least 400 years old. There are records like when white settlers from Britain came to check out Sierra Leone, the tree was already there, and who knows how long it had been there. Then a couple of years later, after they had the white settlers had gotten there, then they were talking. They had gone back, and in the province of Nova Scotia in Canada, there was a large group of freed former slaves from America. They had fought for the British in the Revolutionary War, earned their freedom, and they were living in Nova Scotia. And they're like, you know what, Nova Scotia's cold. And somebody's like, oh, you know what, we just found a new good place to hang out in Africa. If you guys want to go there, they're like, yeah. And I'm simplifying it quite a bit, I think, but more than 1,100 former slaves got on a boat and sailed to Sierra Leone. And they settled Freetown, appropriately named, around the cotton tree. They got there and they had to, they're like, all right, well, we got to clear out a space to build our town, and let's build it centralized around the cotton tree. Like, clear out the square until you get to the tree, and then the tree will be kind of the
center.
And so then the town and city just kind of built up from there, and it's been a constant landmark in Sierra Leone. Gained its independence, no longer a colony, in 1961, and Queen Elizabeth came to kind of visit the tree and kind of give them their, her blessing or whatever it is, basically saying like, all right, see you later. I'm picturing it like, King George and Hamilton. But it was on postage stamps when after they gained their independence, they printed their first money. They put the cotton tree on the money. And it was just a constant kind of
symbol,
landmark and symbol and kind of, the heart of Freetown and Sierra Leone as a whole. And the president of Sierra Leone, Julius Bio, mourned the law, saying there's no stronger symbol of our national story than the cotton tree, a physical embodiment of where we come from as a country. And the branches, it was a huge storm that just blew through. Sierra Leone has had a lot of, they've been really kind of, unfortunately, at the forefront of a lot of climate change disasters. They've had mudslides, they've had a lot of heavy rains, and this storm is the kind of an element of that, in that it just hard rains, strong winds, just kind of took out the tree. The base of the tree, the trunk of the tree is still standing. Over the years, it had been kind of, as the climate as these storms picked up and things like that, they had braced it with some more. There was like basically metal braces and scaffolding around the bottom.
Yeah.
Like when you see an athlete getting older, and to no avail. That the tree kind of cracked. The stump is still there, and the stump is tall. It's not just like, a little tree stump. It's like taller than people.
Yeah.
But it's still there, and they're kind of ruminating on how they're going to memorialize. They're not just going to build a mall over it. Obviously, the tree is hundreds of years of national symbol, and they're going to build a memorial to it on the site of the tree, and they're kind of figuring out what that's going to be. They've said we're going to include input from the community, diverse voices. We're going to make a monument, including the remnants. So they're built on the base of the tree. They're going to kind of build a new monument, kind of memorializing the tree and bringing the historic kind of importance of it into perspective. But it's kind of crazy to think that this tree was just a constant in the town for longer than
America has existed.
Longer than America's existed, pretty much. You know what I mean? 1787, it was already standing. It was already a mature standing tree, so we can assume it had been there for years already. And so, like all of American history, this tree was just there.
Wow. Yeah, I guess they just plant a new one and then wait around for 400 years or whatever to the
Right.
to the next one.
Right. The new cotton tree. And that would be like the, or I'm trying to think of like, the Mercedes-Benz new cotton tree experience.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that. You have to have corporate sponsorship, and it would be all kind of walled off, and you'd have to get like tickets. You have to book tickets in advance to go see the tree.
Yeah.
A nightmare.
It's a virtual tree now. They just have holograms and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be kind of cool, actually. So since the tree is not tearing down the tree to replace it, but since the tree did fall, if they could be at the forefront of getting some cool kind of high tech replacement for it in a hologram or something like that, that'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to dip into the history books for our last one. And this one shocked me because it was 25 years ago that we lost the great Phil Hartman. You may remember him from such films as Jingle All the Way, Three Amigos, and Coneheads. But of course, it's his work on Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons that he'll forever live on in our cultural memories. Born in Ontario, Canada, he started off as a graphic designer. He did album covers for America, Poco, Steely Dan, and others. The Steely Dan album Asia, which is probably their most famous album. He did the cover for that one. So even without becoming an actor, he would have at least lived on some small part of, had some small impact. He joined the Groundlings, the famous improv group, and then worked his way up to Saturday Night Live from 1986 to 1994, where he got the nickname Glue. Because all the other performers were like, he's the solid thing, holds everyone together. He's the dependable, workhorse type of guy. Although it's weird that they call a workhorse Glue, but
Like looking ahead.
Yes, exactly. He did several. He was mostly known as like a kind of utility player, playing whatever small parts.
Sure.
Not necessarily showy ones, but he did have some characters that made impressions. Frank Sinatra, Frankenstein, Unfrozen, Caveman Lawyer, of course, the anal retentive chef, and the narrator of Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. He also had the distinction of playing Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, and Jesus. So,
wow,
talk about a range. That's a
and Frankenstein
and Frankenstein. So, he was on the sitcom News Radio and other appearances, but The Simpsons, where he really is kind of especially missed. He first appeared as Lionel Hutz in the first season, and they enjoyed working with him so much that they said, why don't we make this Lionel Hutz like a recurring character? And he had several recurring characters, Troy McClure, of course, and but also some one-offs, Charlton Heston, Lyle Landley, the monorail salesperson. And after he passed away, they retired all of his characters. So there's definitely a distinction in that, you can tell where you are in The Simpsons. He did the last, I think, season 10, I think, was his last appearance in the episode Bart the Mother.
I think that might have been my last appearance on The Simpsons, too, as a viewer.
Some other things I learned is he was supposed to be the voice of Zap Brannigan in Futurama. You could totally hear it, when you...
now in my head, I'm like, wait, he's not the voice of Zap Brannigan?
Yes, it's Billy West doing an impression
Sure.
of Phil Hartman doing an impression of... It's not quite William Shatner. It's...
No.
Yeah. But the other Futurama connection is that... Philip J. Fry, the Philip in Philip J. Fry is in honor of Philip Hartman. They gave Fry the first name. And the other tantalizing what if is that Phil Hartman wanted to do a live action Troy McClure movie.
Oh, wow.
And he was prepared to buy the rights to it and everything, but it didn't work out. So, but really, strange to imagine what that would have been.
Yeah.
So,
do we think that is that, if you boil it down to one thing, will people remember him as Troy McClure and not his Saturday Night Live? Because to me, it was like, oh, he's the guy from Saturday Night Live, and then, popped up on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Only because, I think largely because that was my peak time of watching Saturday Night Live, was that kind of,
Yeah.
those 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years of kind of the Phil Hartman era into the one that just barely
It's
followed.
an interesting. I mean, I feel like Saturday Night Live is not necessarily the kind of thing when people start watching it that they go back and rewatch
Right.
all the old seasons. So it seems unlikely that someone would discover his. Most people probably aren't going to discover him in Saturday Night Live. The Simpsons, that continues to live on, and especially those early seasons that people hold up as the top ones. But whether or not people will he stand out, or will only be like, voice artist people, like people who know Maurice LaMarche, you know what I mean? Like to people
Sure,
who know
yeah.
voice, they know, but he's not like a mainstream everyday, name. So he might be in that kind of like, not quite footnote, but like that will be the entryway. I think The Simpsons will be the entryway if he either that or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He was key in inventing. He helped Paul Reubens develop the Pee-wee character. So,
and co-wrote the movie, right?
Right.
I believe.
Yes, and appeared in the L.A. version of the early version of the live version of Pee-wee's Playhouse back when it was a unknown thing. So
looking up the years that he both, I think with The Simpsons and Saturday Night Live, like Phil Hartman is my era, and then outside of that, not much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're a Hartman baby.
Yeah. So it's two of my kind of pocket, or at least two of my pocket sketches that I love. That are, the ones that I always refer to that are probably not the most well known. He features in heavily. I've mentioned before, I think, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea sketch, which is hard to find, with where he plays Ned Land. He does a Kirk Douglas impersonation, which is hilarious. And then the robot repair sketch. Let's repair robots. It's just a high concept, all sketch gone. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but he plays the robot repairman in that, so worth checking out. It's all him.
Yeah, I mean, he was in an era on Saturday Night Live of big, big characters, Chris Farley and Mike Myers and Adam Sandler and all. So it was tough to stand. He didn't really stand out in that sense, where like, oh, let's do a movie based on one of Phil Hartman's characters. But he was always fun to see. So
yeah,
and I loved him on news radio too. So, that'll wrap up the history mailbag for today.
And that'll wrap up our episode. As always, there are people and trees and animals that we're not able to mention this week. Give tips of the hats too. But if we missed somebody that you're disappointed that we missed, be sure to comment below if you're watching it on YouTube, or as we said, we're on Twitter and Instagram. I think it's Who Died Pete Alex. Or you can go to whodied.xyz, and that'll get you to not only you'll be able to listen to the show, you'll be able to watch the show from there. It'll link to our social media platforms, and so let us know somebody who you were sad to see pass away, or somebody who you were happy to see pass away in an alternate. If there's good riddance, that also counts here.
Yeah.
So. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Hopefully we'll see you next week on a brand new Who Died with Pete and Alex.